I'm King Link, and it's the first week of December, which means it's time for the Humble Choice December 2020 review. There's actually a few new twists this month. Once again, Humble's giving away all the games for Premium and Classic subscribers, but this time there's actually 14 games. Not a bad change, though. Also, if you are a new subscriber or just appear to be, you get a free month of EA Play Plus, which honestly isn't a bad deal. Now, I'm not going to review EA Play Plus here, but you can play Titanfall 2, which is awesome, Star Wars Squadrons, which if you have VR, definitely play that game, and Jedi Fallen Order, which I hope to play very soon. I actually already own it. If you are an existing member, you get like $5 off. Truthfully, not as compelling, but let's talk about the games that you get in the Humble Choice this month, starting with Overcooked 2. I actually owned this one previously. I was going to be playing it with my daughter, and honestly, in co-op, this game is pretty easy for most players. It's a game about strategy and planning while cooking amazing meals, but my daughter and I 3-starred the first 11 levels or so in 2 attempts at the most. We wanted something a little harder. Still, it is a fun and inventive game. Every level has some mechanic that changes, and there's even a level that transforms from a level in a hot air balloon to a standard restaurant in the middle of service. Kind of a cool moment. Yet it's really lacking a heavy challenge, at least for the beginning levels, and I know it gets harder, but for us, we would flub a level, we thought, and then we'd end up getting 50% higher than the 3-star score. So really, that's the type of challenge that kind of took us out of the game. Though single player does make this game feel much more unbalanced and difficult, it's like this game was made for co-op. Though definitely pick this game up if you like the visuals or have new gamers who are interested in the concept. It's perfect for co-op with friends or family. It actually supports up to 4 players co-op, which is kind of cool. It is mostly a cooking puzzle game though, with a focus on stress, so it's not going to be for everyone. Children of Morta. This is a story-based roguelite. The first 20 minutes have a decent amount of story in it, but then you get to the dungeoning section that's a little more action-focused. The art too is incredible at times, and this game looks great. There are 2 characters that are playable at the beginning, but a feeling that over time more members of the family will also become playable. I'm already seeing signs that I'll probably get my next character after a couple more runs from little story segments that appear after each run. Characters also gain permanent levels and gold for permanent upgrades in the family home, in addition to the temporary items for the current run. Now, one issue that I can see with this game is it might be a little bit short, meaning I actually hear from people that it's about 14 hours for the story, 30 hours for completionists. To me, that's on the short side of a roguelite, but I also think the story is really good and how it weaves into the gameplay is very solid. You should pick this up if you like the art style, like roguelites in general, or like dungeon crawlers. On the other hand, you should skip it if you dislike this art because it's how the game's going to look for the whole thing, or want more story than gameplay because you will have to replay the same dungeon multiple times, most likely, at least from what I've seen. Personally though, I'm going to be playing more of this. One Step from Eden. Oh man, we just got the demo of this game in March 2020 and it was awesome. Now here's the full game. Just look at this. This is Mega Man Battle Networks meets Slay the Spire and it just works. The game is really active and high intensity, but there's also so much here. I've already noticed that you can spear bosses at the end of an area for bonus HP. I've even had one boss take pity on me and not finish me off. There's a decent amount of new characters as well. Each one feels like they have their own deck of spells. This is going to be a game like Slay the Spire where you can just sink hours and hours just playing random runs on this game, and the active battle system makes it feel oh so right. Like I mentioned, it has combat that's similar to Mega Man Battle Network, that old game, which I'm thrilled someone has brought back because it's a really fun system to play with. So pick this up if you like roguelites, Slay the Spire, Mega Man Battle Network, or just intense action games. Skip this if you want story or an adventure because it feels like what you're seeing is what you're getting, just high intensity action. But man, this is so good. The Beast Inside. I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I'm not a fan of horror, I actively avoid horror games, but I did spend a full hour with The Beast Inside. I'm probably never going to pick it up again. But wait. The exact reason I don't want to play this game again is exactly why The Beast Inside is good and people are going to love it. This game has great production values and an interesting system, almost like a walking simulator, but a little more on top of that. But it also has enough terror in that first hour where I almost quit 2 or 3 times because I was scared enough and it just felt like it was getting started. Now, most of the scares so far were jump scares, though because they fit with the story, they felt effective, and they inspired a terror that I think is how horror games should be. I wasn't afraid of the jump scare, I was afraid of the appearance of the next jump scare. So pick this up if you want to be scared and are willing to accept some jump scares. Don't play this if you're a scaredy cat like me, who skipped the end of Chapter 2 in the game because I was afraid something bad would happen in the cutscene. Oh wait, is this thing still recording? Indivisible. This is an RPG with a focus on exploration and platforming outside of the combat system. I'm also seeing hints of Metroidvania in here. I think it is one, but, I only had an hour. I wasn't going to see much there. The combat is an active time battle system that allows players to block incoming attacks and then combo the enemies with their attacks. The art is also beautiful and the levels are interesting. The platforming controls does take a little bit to get used to, but the writing and characters are solid. I was really curious what might happen next in the game, and the boss fight I had at the end of my hour was really clever, something I wish more RPGs would do. At the same time, my buddy who plays a lot more RPGs than me said this game can get a little button mashy later on in the game, and I really do trust his opinion, so I'm telling you that. Honestly, I can see little pieces of this even after that first hour. I still would recommend this game to people. Check this game out because the art style and the interesting character designs. But this is an RPG and the combat does feel like it might go downhill after some time, so be prepared for that. Quick side note though, this is made by Lab Zero Games, who is the studio who is most famously known for Skullgirls. That studio has been shut down, there were claims of sexual harassment, and due to that, promised backer rewards for Indivisible will not be given out. If that matters to you, whether it's the studio or the rewards, keep it in mind, but I also don't think you have to judge this game solely based on that. Up to you. Shining Resonance Refrain. This is an RPG where the main character can turn into a dragon. That's probably going to sell most people on this game, and that's a good thing because I'm limited in my knowledge. I only had about 20 minutes of gameplay here because I watched about 40 minutes of the opening and just had to start skipping until I got to the main game. But the game does look beautiful and the combat is fun. There's a focus on dragons and music with the story, the later giving me hints of Eternal Sonata that I enjoyed, and the combat feels a little bit similar to Ni no Kuni 2 from what I've seen, where you can just drop in and out of an active combat system without loading screens. It's something I really like in RPGs. Now, I have heard that this game can go downhill over time, both in the story and the combat, so the first hour might not give me a great impression, but from what I've seen here, I'm actually really interested in playing more. That is, if I could pick up a random 30-hour game. I have enough of those. So pick this up if you like RPGs and like the active combat system you're seeing. But this is a standard RPG, so that means you have levels, equipment, gear, along with a large town section, and at least in the first hour, entirely too much story, which is typical for RPGs, so that's okay. If you don't like RPGs, I think you can safely skip this one. Zwei the Arges Adventure and Zwei the Ilvard Insurrection. I'm going to be combining these two games for a couple reasons. They're in the same franchise, came out within a year of each other, though technically Ilvard came out first on Steam, Arges is the first game in the series and should be played first. These are RPG dungeon crawlers, at least they feel like an RPG would on the PlayStation 2, and also have the players running through dungeons, probably multiple times each. This series does have a really interesting twist though. Players won't level up by killing enemies, but rather by eating delicious food that they drop. That's also how you heal HP, but if the player gets more than 10 of one food item, you can actually go to town and make a better meal. Interesting idea, and it actually does work pretty well. You're seeing Arges Adventure, so let's switch over to the Ilvard Insurrection. While this is a similar game, obviously Arges is a 2D dungeon crawler, Ilvard is more like 3D. I actually think Ilvard is a far better game in most ways, but I did have some controller issues with it, which I didn't in Arges. Still, both of these games are really interesting. The most interesting thing for me is that they were made in 2007 and 2008 respectively. Arges actually released on PS2, Ilvard did not. However, neither game got localized for English until 2018 and 2017 respectively. Like I said, they came out in reverse order. These games are rather good, but they definitely feel old. Not nearly as bad as Turok has in the past or Capitalism, but this feels like it should be part of some random bundle, not a humble choice. Just my opinion, and just so you know, I would actually buy that bundle. However, pick up these games if you want an interesting dungeon crawler, or if you're a fan of retro games or PlayStation 2 era games. These are pretty good. If you want a more modern sensibility, you probably should skip these. Like I said, they do feel a bit outdated. If you want my personal take though, I'll probably come back and I'll play both of these. These are actually really fun. And if you speak German, it means we got Zui Zui. Tabletop Playground. Let's start with the positives. This feels like a well-developed tabletop simulator where players can play games, download mods of new games, and play in a controlled environment with no cleanup. The game runs pretty well and pieces can be moved as they should. There's even VR support, though I didn't try that one out. With the positives out of the way, there are a few issues. There's no AI, which would be hard to add for just one of these games, like chess. Rules aren't actually codified in the game, so I could move chess pieces any way I wanted, and I had to promote myself. The base games are lacking, but the mod support does help quite a bit. Now the bad. This was clearly made with Tabletop Simulator in mind. Problem is, it's not popular at all and it's in early access. Maybe that means it will get a ton better, but more likely it will struggle. If you have friends who have this and want to play it, that's fine. However, this has only 32 simultaneous users peak of all time. Comparatively, Tabletop Simulator has around 10,000 simultaneous users as I write this in the middle of the night. This might be a better product, sure, possible, but this is a program you will need to play with other people, so I'm going with Tabletop Simulator. Check this out if you need this exact program to play with friends, but even then, maybe tell them to check out Tabletop Simulator instead. I don't hate this game. I just think it's unfortunate that they chose to compete with an ultra-popular program and try to do the same things. But for me, I'm good with Tabletop Simulator. The Haunted Island, a Frog Detective game, and Frog Detective 2, The Case of the Invisible Wizard. You know when you're on a time crunch, it's great to be able to speed through a game. I beat The Haunted Island in 37 minutes, and I was able to beat Frog Detective 2, The Case of the Invisible Wizard in 55 minutes, though I still have a few achievements to collect on that one. These are not very long games, and I'm also not sure I really like them. There will be people who like the writing and style of Frog Detective, it just wasn't for me. The gameplay of both games are just fetch quests, and the experience is a touch lacking. I wasn't really a fan of the humor either. The real problem with them is they're really short, and while they only sell for $5 on Steam, that's 2 games that together go for $9 in a combo pack in the humble choice. The second game is slightly improved, but it's not enough to really change my opinion on the pair of them. Pick this up if you like what you're seeing on screen, but this is the style and humor of both games. Otherwise, I think it's safe to skip these games unless you want an ultra-fast game. Still There. This is a strange puzzle game. Much of this game's story and concept is similar to games like Booth, which we saw in August 2020's bonus games. However, much of this game is about giving the player a task and letting them figure out how to do it. There's a ton of weird and strange devices here that the player has access to, but very specific tasks that he must do to complete the game. Still There also doesn't hold the player's hand. It has a very good hint system in the form of an AI, but even there it doesn't give you very specific instructions. I'm actually stuck trying to figure out how to get an oscilloscope on the screen so I can try to match the frequency to communicate over a satellite. To be honest, part of that has a personal meaning for me, so that's really cool. The concept here, though, is really good, even though the person in this role probably should have had hundreds of hours of training on how to do most of these basic tasks. I love playing with the system, though, and trying to make it work, though a progressive hint system wouldn't have hurt this game. Admittedly, the developers have pointed people to the one Steam guide walkthrough. I feel that's a little bit of a cop-out. But still, this is a very unique puzzle game. I'm really enjoying myself with it. So check this game out if you like puzzle games that may stump you. There's pieces of this game that also reminds me of Zachtronics. At the same time, skip this game if you don't like anything that I've been talking about here, because that is really what this game will be about. Struggling. So many potential jokes, but truthfully, I just don't like this game. The concept of a physics-based platformer where you control both hands have been done before. In fact, we got Heave Ho this year, and that was too short but had great controls. Struggling does not have great controls, nor a good feeling for the game's physics when you play. I constantly fought against the control scheme, found my character was annoying to control, the movement required was usually not too bad, though some time sections really increased my dislike of this game. The real killer for me, though, is that this game looks hideous, and I know that this is an art style that someone will enjoy, but for me, I dislike the look of this game, dislike the controls, dislike the screams the character makes, dislike the level design. I'm just not a fan of this game. 30 minutes into this game, I gave up. I could play for an hour just according to the rules that I have, but it would only make me hate this game with a white-hot passion. Currently, I just don't like it, even though I'm sure some people might. I even went back and played Heave Ho and realized how much I enjoyed that control scheme over this. Check this game out if you like the look of this. It's a very stylistic game, of course. I've heard some people think it's better in co-op, others think it's easier in single player, so maybe if you have someone you want to play with, try it, but Personally, I don't think I can recommend this game to anyone. Path of Giants. This is a puzzle game where you take on the role of 3 adventurers. I immediately thought of the Lost Vikings or Trine, but it turns out none of these characters have special abilities. This is just a simple point-and-click puzzle game. You move each character, have them hit buttons, and solve simplistic one-screen levels. Each chapter has 3 or 4 rooms, but I was able to make good progress, perhaps too good. I got through 9 chapters out of a total of 17 chapters I could see, and really didn't struggle that much. Truthfully, it's a good game, but it has almost no challenge for puzzle fans. It is a serene or chill game, but as a fan of puzzle games, I want more. Something that literally puzzles me. If it wasn't for the slow move animations, I probably could have even beaten more puzzles. If you really like puzzle games and like the look of this game, it's kind of charming in that way, but I really say that most people should probably avoid this. The puzzles are just too easy and the experience almost feels passive, which is a bad sign for a puzzle game. So that's the 14 games this month. That's actually a huge number in my mind, but wait, there's more. You get a bonus game. Let's take a quick look. The Corridor. Wow. Okay, this is a hard game to explain, but it's kind of like the Stanley Parable in that there's a narrator who interacts with the player. The game is all about pressing a button, and when you do, the game closes. But of course, this is just part of the story. The program itself, though, really does close, and you have to manually reopen it each time. But the game itself will do something different each time you reopen it. There's so much I love about this concept, though, and it's extremely well executed. I laughed a lot, there's a ton of clever moments, and so much more. Sadly, though, this game is only about 20 minutes long. Heck, this video might be longer. But there were 20 amazing minutes here, and I'm thrilled to have experienced them. Anyone who buys this bundle needs to try out this game. It's free, so that's great. I also like this game so much, I actually picked it up on Steam to support the devs a little more. It's only about $2 there, so if you decide to skip the bundle, I'd still recommend checking it out on Steam. With that said, we have 15 games this month. That's so many. And I said, premium and classic subscribers get them all. I wish this would become the standards because choosing games is stupid, but I hate that they keep giving it away as a bonus. At the same time, there's also EA Play Pro like I mentioned, but that's only for new subscribers, which honestly kind of sucks. There are advertisements that this is part of the bundle, and apparently most of us got $5 off. Come on, Humble, this feels like false advertising. As for the games itself, I think it's a pretty good month, especially if you like RPGs. There are RPG elements to a lot of games this month, and they're pretty unique. Zwei especially, even as an older game, but both Children of Morta and Shining Resonance Refrain look really good. There's also a lot of variety here, and I do applaud that. The bundle goes to some strange places, and most of the time it's great, but some of the times I think it's a little too out there. Personally, if this was where Humble Choice stayed, though, I wouldn't have a major problem with it. Though without a huge $60 title, I know some fans are going to be mad. At $12, I see enough games I want to play more of where I might be able to get at least 100 hours of game time out of this bundle. And that's not even counting One Step from Eden, which could be any amount of time, I'm still not sure. Still, there are going to be winners and losers of the month, or as I call them, the strongest and the weakest. I have the 5 strongest and 3 weakest, starting with the bottom. The third weakest is the Frog Detective games. So let me be clear, these aren't bad games, they're just very short and quite cheap. At $10 to buy both, that's not a lot of money, but also I finished both games in under 90 minutes. And if that's not enough, Haunted Island has actually been in 2 other Humble bundles and an itch.io bundle. This should be better. The second weakest is Struggling. There's only 2 games I didn't last an hour with, and Struggling was one. People may enjoy this one, but for me, this was a heavy miss. I don't know. Someone's going to love the art, not me, though. The weakest of the month is Tabletop Playground. I'm not really sure that this game should exist, or at least be released in this state. I think Tabletop Simulator has the market cornered, and there should be more challengers, but maybe not this. Playground has 32 simultaneous users, and that was from the Humble Choice. Before it was even the bundle, the highest number of simultaneous players was 11. I just don't see this game working, I'm sorry. As for the other side, the strongest of the month, the 5th strongest is The Corridor. I actually have never put a bonus game on either list, but I really think The Corridor is exceptional, and I would say even if you don't get the bundle, still consider picking this one up on Steam. I laughed a lot and I enjoyed the experience, and while it is short, it's definitely worth a couple bucks. The 4th strongest is The Beast Inside. This game wasn't for me, but I do think that horror fans will probably have a great time with it and should check this one out. It scared me, but to be honest, that's probably not saying much. The 3rd strongest is Still There. I like this type of puzzle game where you know what you have to do, but you don't know how to do it. A lot of games confuse this with using moon logic, but here it's about understanding the world and environment that you've been placed on, using real logic. It might not be the longest game, but it still interests me the most this month. The second strongest is One Step from Eden. Like I said, Mega Man Battle Network was a great game, and marrying that to Slay the Spire, another great game, makes for an amazing experience. I think I'm going to have to put in some serious time on this. I may not enjoy this game after maybe 30 or 40 hours, but that's more than most games that I play, so we'll see. The strongest game is Children of Morta. Something about this game speaks to me. I recently gave Hades a glowing comparison to Dead Cells, and one strong thing there was the way they delivered the story, even though it's a roguelite. Children of Morta seems to care about story and roguelite aspects, and if so, that's worth checking out. There's actually a ton of potential in Children of Morta as well, and having a huge party with tons of items and trinkets that you can grow will make this into a great game. So those are my thoughts on this month's Humble Choice. Thanks for watching. So just in case you want more from me, I'll give you the December schedule. I'm planning on a comparison between the 3 Yakuza games that are on PC right now versus the newest Yakuza game, Like a Dragon, that has just been released on PC. All 3 of those previous Yakuza games have been in the Humble Choice already, so check that one out. And at the end of this year, I'm going to be doing the end-of-year wrap-up, kind of in the same format as this, with short looks at the games that I loved this year. If you want to support the channel or are interested in those, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and of course, share this video. That always helps out. Comment down below to let me know which games from this month that you're looking forward to playing, or which games you've enjoyed the most, or, which ones I was wrong about. Finally, you can check out these videos. So I mentioned a video my daughter and I did last week on co-op games with a small mention of Overcooked 2. I'll link it here. It's a cute video. You should check it out. And since I mentioned the story and roguelite aspects of Hades, here's that comparison with Dead Cells. That's a more hardcore video if you want to go that way. Until then, I'm King Link, and thanks for watching.